Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Narek Vardanyan with us today. He's CEO at prelaunch.com, where he helps brands to validate their innovations and launch confidently. He's in Armenia right now, does back and forth between Armenia and the US. He's also the owner at Gadget Flow, was the owner at TCF, so serial entrepreneur. It's going to be fun. This podcast is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start and monetize your podcast, go to podpire.com. It's also brought to you by Qualia Mind. If you want to optimize your mind as a busy CEO, as a busy entrepreneur, go to neurohacker.com/CEO wisdom. Narek, welcome to the podcast. Give me a bit more info about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Hey, Charles, thanks for having me. So I started a marketing agency called TCF 10 years ago and entered into this innovation sphere where we would help companies launch their innovations with crowdfunding and then take them to e-commerce. So it went really well. We helped multiple, like thousands of companies launch their products. We essentially grew the TCF to become one of the largest and most successful agencies in the industry. And we noticed that many of the products that we are helping them to be launched, they were failing. So in less than a year, they would disappear from the market. So this is what brought us into this kind of science of the fundamentals on how people decide what's working, what's not working, how people make these decisions. And we launched pre-launch basically, and this is where we are.
Tell me about your first startup and how life-changing it was for you.
So the first startup, back in childhood, I was always entrepreneurial, started a lot of stuff, failed a lot. But I think the first serious startup was the TCF, the marketing agency that I mentioned, which grew to 120 people, like with the subsidiaries in China, in Europe, and literally become one of the biggest agencies. So learned a lot. Entrepreneurial journey is always full of failures and learnings. So yeah, you need to be ready for both.
Did you had an exit on that one? I see 7 years here. What happened? I think it was in 2022.
I didn't exit, actually. I'm not that much involved operationally at this stage, I would say, but I'm still a co-founder there.
So 120 employees, how does that compare to your current business pre-launch?
So currently we have 25, 28 employees, teammates at pre-launch. We're trying to keep the team lean and don't add that much headcount at this stage. For TCF, it was not that much possible because one of our key kind of fundamental advantages was that we would customize and dedicate a 15-person team to each project, and that would be kind of the core of its success. So that's why it also grew so quickly with the employee count. Yeah.
Tell me about pre-launch and how that idea came about, what the business about, and who you target with that one.
The pre-launch, the idea came from failures. Like we failed a lot. Like I myself, I was coming into the room where there were a lot of samples of these cool innovative products and was picking the one, and then the whole year would work on that product, and then it would go and fail, right? And it was really interesting to find out how we can trust the data to not depend on the CEO's gut feeling, but have more reliable kind of substance there. So we tried to research, tried all the tools that were out there, like all the classical stuff. And what we figured out is that basically, fundamentally, the research haven't been changed in the past couple of 100 years, I would say. And the way it works, both online and offline, is that there are these professional panelists, like people whom you will pay, and then they'll give you their opinion on whether they like your idea or not, right? Like a classical focus group type of a model, and then there are different variations of it. But that ultimately leads to very biased opinions because first of all, you don't know whether you're talking to the right type of customers, whether they're telling the truth. Do they really want to buy your products? Are they trying to be really nice to you and not tell you like something else? And all this leads to this over-optimism of working on some products that doesn't really make sense and doesn't have a potential. So what we understood is that we need to really incentivize and find a model where people will put where their money, where their mouth is, like have skin in the game, and will make insights based on their behaviors rather than only on their opinions. So this is how we invented and come up with this deposits and reservation model. And the way it works would be like this. So on one hand, we have brands who would place their concepts on the platform. And then on the other side, we would have potential customers to place small amount of deposits, like $10, $20, to prove their real buying intent. And then we'll ask them why you did so. So we'll use our analytics, our benchmarking systems to get deeper insights. But then we'll be kind of confident that we're asking the right type of people. And this was so powerful that this helped us grow the agency to become one of the leaders in the industry, because we were able to pick up the very right products out there. And then we started to provide it as a service, because we saw that literally everybody needs this service. It was very popular, so it kind of spun off to become a whole separate kind of platform. And then now we're working with the bigger companies, with Fortune 500 brands, and trying to help them validate their concepts based on the real buying intent, and only after invest into those productions to make sure that they're successful.
That's interesting. And what are the fees to get on your platform if I'm developing a product, a smart spice rack, and how much should I pay to get in there?
It's first of all, you can do it free, and it's really easy to onboard. We have like a lot of plans, and especially for the startups, it can start for something like $200 a month. The most popular plans we have is this Pro plan, which it will cost about $6,500 a year, which includes also a concierge service, like a service where we will take care from everything from page creation to advertising to reporting, etc. So essentially, like to kind of give you an average estimate, like for $10,000 to $15,000, which will include some budgeting for the advertisings, etc. You will get a really good sense and really good data that you can really trust on whether it works in the market or not, who are your customers, why they're buying your products, what is the best price points that you should go with, and bunch of other data.
I see a bunch of products on your website. They're very interesting, most of them. What makes a good product nowadays? Do you have examples of like humongous market fits, products that really exploded nowadays? Like, what are the criteria generally behind the algorithm of the product idea PMF validator?
I wish I could come up with an exact formula, but one formula that definitely works everywhere, and this is what we're kind of advocating, is that you need to get to your consumers as soon as possible, and then start to co-create together with them, right? Because what we see in our platform is that the products might shift so much that they might become unrecognizable, and they might become something else if they are on the platform quickly, early on, and then they are getting their real users on board. And then we have these co-creational models when then they are doing iterations based on the real feedback that they're getting from their customers. That's the only formula I would say that works really well, because if you're into something, if you have an initial kind of high-level product market fit, in a sense that this is interesting, but you might not be there in terms of pricing, business model, positioning, markets, a lot of stuff, right? It's a really complex set of features which you need to be right on every single point to make a really successful product. And it's really, really hard. You might be good into something, and then you'll have to figure out the others. And the best way to do it is to just, to pre-launch it, make sure you have the right type of customers on board, and then have the platform to talk to them, learn from them, get their insights. And we have this interesting way also to learn from these known buyers, like for people who are interested into your product, but they are not giving you these deposits for some reason. And maybe sometimes it can be something big, like the value proposition is not resonating with them, or it might be something really small, like they didn't like the color, Okay, so in this case, you can learn it and you can change these small things, and then you can get a really successful product by making a small shifts.
It's quite interesting because most of these products, well, first they're really well branded, but they all seem like nice to haves, like wants and not needs. How do you make sure to come up with a product that is a need and a real pain point?
It really depends, and they're like, but the innovations are becoming really like different types, right? There are these incremental innovations which are just making you entertained and just improve slightly some aspect of your life, or there might be some really disruptive innovations which literally like give you a lot of value. So I think it really depends. What matters is that to really understand if there's a market for this specific product, you might have a really like a fidget type of toy or something else, and this might be sold for millions of dollars. Usually I have this presentation when I show some of the products and ask the audience, can they guess which product did most of the sales? And in 99% of the cases, they couldn't. Because sometimes it's really hard to understand a really super best-selling product, and it might be really simple thing, but you might have millions of dollars of sales because you're right in the right time, in the right place, with the right people, with the right price, and it can fly.
What's the GTM path to most of these companies? I definitely think about crowdfunding and platform like Indiegogo or Kickstarter. Is that still the best path to take as a product company?
It really depends. I would say it also depends on the size of the company. So if it's typically a startup, then crowdfunding and also physical products, then crowdfunding is the best place to go and to launch your next kind of phase and next platform, gather funding and produce these products. But we're having bigger companies like we have Audi, which is a big car manufacturer, and they definitely launch it in different platforms. Many companies are taking the products to Amazon, to e-commerce, to their websites. So depending on your kind of GTM goals and then the next goals and then the size of your company, you can decide the next platform. How we brand pre-launch is to literally become the first step of the launch and the earliest place where you could gather your customer feedback. And then what you'll do is up to you to decide.
Then is the natural path to scaling an innovative product like an exit to a big CPMG company in the fitness field, let's say that Bowflex would buy my idea. And in the golfing space, let's say that Callaway would acquire me. Like, is that the path? How long is that pathway? Because I'm also trying to figure out, like my first startup was a nootropic, like these guys here at Qualia. And I had to put it to the ground because the fees of just making the product happen and the fees of shipping and transportation made it like way more complicated to start a business in that field rather than a service business like the agencies that I run nowadays. So what does the timeline in terms of starting, scaling, and getting acquired?
Um, very different, like a lot of different stories. Like, for example, we might have a story where you have this really groundbreaking idea. You just put out the design, the concept out there and get the metrics. And then you take the metrics, go to investors, and then they'll invest in your company because you have already proof. You have a proven market interest and you're showing them that you have really traction and they can see it's hard to argue because in this case they see a real commitment from real people, right? So we got multiple of these kind of next step scenarios. We got some exits as well where they would kind of again get the traction, then get real interest from the bigger players, and then they would exit without even getting into all these kind of nuances of the production, delivery, manufacturing, etc. But a classical way is that, especially if you're a serial manufacturer, like a serial creator, where you are constantly trying to come up with different types of products, and it's really hard to invest in all of them. you really need the data to understand which ones are the best-selling products from all the pipeline that you have, right? And in this case, you're like, we don't even call it a failure, because if you're investing into the product and you learn it beforehand that it's not working, it's not really a failure. It's basically saving a lot of time and money in this case. But if we call it even a failure, you do it as cheap as possible and as quickly as possible, and only invest your time and energy into the ones that work. And then depending on your kind of next stage, if you're in the market, in your Shopify store, you can exit it, or you can just create a really big business.
Right. And tell me about like the best channels, the best performing channels nowadays in terms of sales. Is it starting my own Shopify? Then how should I market it? Is it the typical AdWords campaigns, Facebook ads? My startup back then, my nootropic startup, we were big on Facebook and Instagram, which is now Meta. Is it TikTok? You know, what's the most efficient way of getting sales like that I can have full ownership? And also tell me about Amazon and how did it evolve in terms of sales, and if it's still an interesting channel.
100%. It's still an interesting channel, and like the best way is to be in all the platforms, but depending on the product type and the GTM strategies, you need to pick one of your main product first and then expand it to others, right? Like eventually you want to be both on Amazon, on TikTok Shop, on Shopify, etc. But some of the products, like if it's a low ticket item, for example, you might choose a TikTok shop, which is evolving right now, and then you might get a couple of influencers who might share your products, and this will be the main channel for your scaling. And then you'll go to Amazon, benefit from the search there, and then go to Shopify, start to like optimize your SEO, and then get some more sustainability over there. So it really depends on the price points, on the types of products, on on the market fit, like platform market fit more, and depending on that, you need to do some research. You need to understand where your competitors are mostly, and this will give you a kind of a hints where you need to focus more your attention as a first go to platform channel. But eventually you want to kind of expand it to as many e-commerce channels as possible, because everything has their benefits.
And then is the first step like using your AI idea validator and then deploying ads and testing like one pain point / one feature at a time and seeing what the market says?
Exactly. Yeah. If you have just an idea, you don't have designers, you're not designer yourself, and you need to AI to kind of formulate the concept, and you need to get feedback. The idea validation, we have this AI idea validation where you could just explain an idea and it will create a product for you, and then you could get feedback from people. So this essentially will be the first step to give you an insights on whether you're on the right track or not. Then the next step will be to create a concept prototype from this early idea, right? To give it a price, to create more versions of it, maybe create more designs, more use cases, etc. Because people really want to see whether this more looks like a product or it's just an idea. Then at this stage, the classical pre-launch validation starts, where you expose it on the platform, whether private or public. If it's a really kind of a groundbreaking idea, you might want to not to show it to everybody. You can also keep it private. So we have this version as well on the platform. And then you'll see basically how many people are putting down these reservation fees, how it compares to the other industry products, whether you're on the upper percentile. Then you come up, as you said, with different iterations. So you can change the pricing, increase the price, decrease the price, change the positioning, change the markets. And every time you do this iteration, you'll see whether you're improving the product or not. And then you have a really reliable data to make decisions.
Seems what's missing though, like if I would want to iterate as fast in the product world as I would like to iterate in the service world, is a Uber-like platform in which I can have my prototype done almost immediately. I'm not sure how would that be. That's actually the question I'm about to ask you. But yeah, I could modify my prototype in real time. I wouldn't need to order like 100 or 1,000 quantities. So I could almost test in real time. And last, this platform would also make it hyper personalizable for the end client. For example, a couple of businesses idea that I had lately, nothing innovative, but here I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico, in the capital of Mezcal, and it would just be like very fancy glass bottles that would be customized by GPT for all my clients, right? But like, yeah, there doesn't seem to be a system for that, or an automated factory meets smart engineers that can architect my product. So do you think that would be the next mega big company? And how feasible would it be to launch a cloud system that would allow creators to test in real time, not order big quantities, and have the product that they want ultimately?
There is a lot of good news in this space, and especially with the AI, robotics, and automation entering into the manufacturing area. I would say the costs are gradually going down, and the cost of prototyping and the easiness of prototyping is becoming more accessible to much wider audiences. There are already some platforms with whom we're partnering with who can really simplify this, like provide you all the vendors, and you can like select, like you're buying from Amazon. You could literally like select a vendor, and then they send you the prototypes, the amount of units that you really need. So this is going to be really simple and accessible to literally to everybody. And a creative person, if he's creative, doesn't matter where he lives, what kind of knowledge or network he has, he can literally enter into pre-launch, and then whether on pre-launch or like based on our partners that we have, he can get their design done, get their customization done, get their prototypes done, and eventually get a real full-scale manufacturing also. So yeah, this is kind of the next steps that we're definitely working on.
And is distance a challenge? Because I guess if I'm from the States, I would love my product to be built in the States for the environment, for the timing, because it seems that still most of the stuff we use on a daily basis is made in China, in Shenzhen, if it's an electronic. So can we bring the production near home? Can these factories be built inside countries and at scale?
Definitely 100%. Like there's this platform, it's called Zometry, and that's basically an aggregator of all the factories, right? So the way it functions is that you can just specify some of your criteria, as you mentioned, and it will just show you the shortlisted vendors and from their aggregated kind of network that they have. And it's literally a couple of clicks where you can just, send them your CAD file, and they'll take it, manufacture it, and then deliver it to you, whether from Shenzhen or from the US or from the Europe. So it's really becoming very accessible, and these aggregators and companies are trying to accumulate all the players around the world and make it really, first of all, very cheap and very accessible. So like we're really excited about all these kind of developments, because this really helps, let's say, ordinary people to become more creative and to become more entrepreneurial and enter into the fields which were like literally monopolies and were closed for decades.
So just like Travis Kalanick with Cloud Kitchen is in between the kitchen and the entrepreneur, the cook, the creator. Um, he's in the cloud in between. So do you think being in the cloud in between the manufacturer and the creator, would that be a multi-billion or trillion-dollar company? And why hasn't one company surfaced with that yet?
I know a couple of companies which definitely are on their path towards that areas. Maybe we'll be the next one. We'll see. But yeah, that's definitely the future, and the future is in the clouds, in making things accessible, in just like having the right middlemen who would aggregate all the manufacturing capacities. Because even this, like in the case of Uber, these factories, they have a lot of unused manpower, unused capacities, while somebody who connects all these kind of supply and demand side could really benefit out of it.
What's next for you? What are your goals for this year?
Yeah, we are working on a couple of really interesting features. Like one of the really cool features that I'm very excited about is called AI customer personas. So like we're using a lot of AI and machine learning kind of tools now, where we try to understand who is your customer, understand what are some of the clusters, what similarities are between them, right? And just give you a really good, concise information about what kind of groups exist in your customer base, etc. So now we are adding this chat button where essentially you could chat with your future customers. Like based on the learnings and intelligence that's happening on the platform and on your specific idea and product, we can understand on what type of customer is this, and then you can chat with them, ask questions day and night, and then get really interesting insights on why people like or don't like your products, what specific requirements they have, how you need to change your pricing, etc., etc. So what we're doing, we're like kind of utilizing the predictive analytics and bringing all this prediction into the current learnings that we will have based on your data. And yeah, I think it's going to be really cool.
Last question I wanted to ask you earlier, like what's your opinion on B2B? Let's say if I have this new product and use cold email as a channel to outreach to other businesses that could buy in bulk, or we could partner together and they would sell the product, take a commission. What's your take on B2B? Are creators leveraging that channel enough nowadays?
It's really specific. I would say we got a couple of really interesting use cases where they got some success with the B2B as well. So it really depends if you have a clear path to your customers or not. And you basically answered your questions. And if you know who are your customers, if you have some network, if you can easily get them to your product page, this can work out. But if you're really not sure and it's really kind of complicated industrial type of thing, and you have only one buyer and your goal is just to kind of go and convince him, it might not be the best place, right? So it really depends on the size of your audience and your access to those audience. Why it's working really good with the B2C is that it's fairly easy to use social media advertising, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, and get to your customers. So if you can do the same for the B2B, then it can definitely work.
Last question. Do you see value in copywriting stuff and patenting stuff, or is this world more about selling at scale and may the best win and may my competitor even copy me to win?
No, the copywriting and patents are important, and we always kind of encourage our creators to kind of go for the patent as soon as possible. And this is why we have this private testing as well, because we're seeing a big demand, especially with the big manufacturers, big enterprise companies. They don't want to expose their really creative ideas to the competitors. And what we do, we would really limit the amount of people to this page, don't expose it on the website. So you really can't see it. And of course, it's not 100%, but you really mitigate the risk of competitors seeing it. And especially with the predictive analytics coming up, you can literally have, I don't know, a couple of hundred really relevant customers on your page and generalize it to the bigger and wider population. So yeah.
Thanks, Narek. Well, where can people find out more about you?
On LinkedIn, they can find me, Narek Vardanyan, or sign up for pre-launch.